Morning, everyone. It's Joe Waxman, and I'm back with another mini reading. This morning, I would like to look at the chart of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. I liked Elvis when I was a kid. I mean, when not when I was real young, but at some point, I listened to, some of his stuff. But it was kind of before my time. But, I mean, I think he was a great artist and perfect guy for the time. And anyway, I think his chart is really worth looking at. And let's get to it. All right. Elvis Presley, January 8th, 1935, 4:35 a.m. in Tupelo, Mississippi. King of rock and roll. All right. Capricorn Sun, conjunct Mercury and Venus, right? Capricorn, he looks like Capricorn, right? Like kind of tough, masculine, but he just no nonsense. It's a very Capricornian look, that the pompadour, the hair, the black, just Mr. Cool, and he wasn't very, he was a boss, right? He was the king of rock and roll. He wasn't the queen of rock and roll. He wasn't the I don't know what. He was, very Capricornian, very male, very masculine, not very, his music wasn't emotional. It wasn't emotionally charged. It was very, it was rock and roll, right? And he has the typical signature here of a lot of musicians, Mercury conjunct Venus. The other one is Venus conjunct Mars. So it's Venus and Mercury or Venus and Mars usually you see with a lot of musicians. Now his is also conjuncting the sun, and you would say, I mean, this is combust, but it's not really damaging it. I mean, obviously it wouldn't, because he's still the king of rock and roll, and he's the most successful single performance artist of all time. I think that's the category he's in. But it's also the second house, and second house rules the voice, right? It rules our self-worth and assets. So like extreme confidence can be found here with Sun here, and he lit up the stage. He had this just aura about him that was just magnanimous, right? So there's tons of self-worth, tons of self-esteem, and second house rules the voice, and the second house ruled by Saturn. It's in the third house, and this is the same signature that Michael Jackson had, different planet. But when the second lord is in the third house, it brings a lot of skills and expression to the voice. That's a very expressive voice. People with this combination really know how to use their voice in a controlled way. They can play their voice like it becomes like a skilled instrument. It's not just like a good voice. It's a very skilled voice, right? And he's infusing that with his moon, Pisces moon. Pisces moon, very creative. Again, Michael Jackson had this highly creative moon. And even though it's conjunct Saturn, it's still powerful, and it's still strong, and it's not like the Saturn kind of dries it out. And that's good for rock and roll. We didn't, at that time, it wasn't really like, his music was not sappy or emotional, and that's not what it called for at that time, at that kind of music. We wanted rock and roll, right? And that's what he was, that's what he delivered. So the Saturn actually helps it from being too soft, too feminine, too emotional. It's still creative, but it's drying it out, keeping it masculine and tough. He had that toughness. That's the Capricorn, the Saturn, right? We like that. That's what we like about his music. It was rock and roll, And Sagittarius Ascendant. I mean, I don't think there's any better sign to represent rock and roll than Sagittarius, because it's just got that feel to it, that that relaxed, cool, fiery, just wild feel that rock and roll has. Rock and roll is about that fire, that sizzle, that aggressive but cool, relaxed way of being. So yeah, Sagittarius Ascendant, it's ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's in the 12th house in Scorpio. This is giving him a lot of depth and creativity. I mean, 12th house, you're like, why is it in 12th house? Well, 12th house, a lot of musicians, artists, creative type people have planets in the 12th house, right? And in Scorpio, it's just making him legit. It's just bringing in that depth, that authenticity, that the realness that we feel in his music. It has that quality, that edginess, that there was like some like a tinge of, like a feeling, like a little bit of danger, because Scorpio is a little bit dangerous, right? Scorpio has that dangerous quality to it. There's so brought in some dangerous element to his music. The sun is ruling the 9th house, so it's bringing in, I mean, he had a very, very diverse musical style. I mean, he sung gospel, he sung religious, he sung rock and roll, he sung country and blues and rockabilly. I think he was one of the pioneers of rockabilly. Yeah. And so we're seeing the 9th house influence, and we're seeing a lot of different influences here. 7th house, 10th house, 11th house, 6th house, all right in the 2nd house. And that's bringing his a lot of diversity to his voice. And his voice was the primary thing that brought him to fame. I mean, he also did acting, and we can see that by the 5th Lord in the 10th house, Mars. Also 12th Lord in the 10th house. This is bringing him a lot of recognition and fame and acting. But see, Mars is in Libra, so his acting career wasn't that strong. He did it, right? Because Mars is great in the 10th house. Mars has a lot of dignity in the 10th house, but not in Libra. So it's like, yeah, he could rise to fame, he could be seen, he could do movies, but he's not going to be known for his acting ability, and he wasn't. He was known for his musical ability. It's almost like the acting ability rode on top of the musical ability. He was really a musician, and that's what brought him to fame. That's what brought him recognition. Acting was just there. It was a side note kind of thing. It was like, man of multi-talents, right? And that's why, Mars in Libra, it's not that strong. So also we see Neptune here. Neptune is the co-ruler of Pisces, and it's in the 9th house, but 10th sign, right? So that's very visible, bringing his roots, early recognition, his hometown, Memphis, Tennessee, just his roots, his authentic way of being that was brought up to to fame and recognition. And Neptune also great for artists, actors, musicians, dancers, any of the Neptunian type arts. Terrible for a politician. If you see a politician with this, run away. Like, they're lying. They're fooling you, because this Neptune is the sign of delusion and fantasy and deceit, right? Great for an actor, great for a musician, great for an artist, because that's what they do. They're illusionists, right? But if a politician has this, like Joe Biden, he's lying, guaranteed, right? Yeah. J.D. Rockefeller had this too, and he was lying too. He was deceiving the public, right? We know Elvis is deceiving us, and that's what we want from him. That's what we love. He's putting on a show. He's an illusionist, right? Yeah, so Pluto is opposing Venus and Mercury very strongly here in Cancer. So relationships were very difficult, obsessive, controlling, um, power over, dominating, um, manipulative, secretive, and transformative, and just deep and powerful and obsessive. But that also gave him an edge to his music, right? Because here we see Venus, especially with the music, but also Mercury. And the second house, the voice. It added a lot of power and depth. It wasn't lightweight. It gave him some authentic, with the Jupiter in Scorpio in the 12th, plus the Pluto in Cancer in the 8th, and South Node in Leo in the 8th, that gave him a lot of realness. That gave him, he wasn't just a lightweight, he had a lot more power and depth and rawness to his music because of that. And without that, his music would have fallen flat. It just wouldn't have had the impact. You need some of that opposite, that polarity, that Pluto depth, Pluto, Scorpio, 8th house, to really bring in a power, right? We saw that with a lot of musicians, like with Kurt Cobain and with Jimi Hendrix. They both have the Pluto, Scorpio, Mars and Scorpio thing going on, 8th house, that really brings in a lot of power and depth to their music. And Elvis had that too. Like, he could get down, he could rock and roll. Like, and if you listen to some of his songs, like, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, still got power. Even though it was early on, and as a society, we hadn't broken through those boundaries yet to get really deep and dirty into like the subconscious mind. For that time, it was down and dirty. It was deep. It was like, wow, raw, like power, right? South Node in Leo, even though it's in the 8th house, again, Leo is the sign of fame. South Node is the early life, early fame, but powerful, deep. There was some difficulty too. 8th house always brings difficulty, brings a lot of crisis, but it brings, that scorpionic 8th house depth, right? Later, he was more into, second house, comfort, security, like big fat Elvis, Vegas Elvis, because that's North Node in the second house. That's, it's just like excess. This is the Taurus original house, right? And Aquarius, weird, weirdo, just kind of like absurd Elvis, eating like peanut butter and banana sandwiches, being all fat and excessive, but yeah, let's move on. But like, what really, so here we have this square, okay, really intense square to Uranus, okay? Uranus is squaring Venus and Mercury and Pluto. So number one, we could say that, again, his relationships were very tumultuous, and he just really he was not attached. Like, he could instantly like get together with someone and then break up with them really quickly. And it was painful, intense because of Pluto, but like, he was just in and out all the time. And this strongly affected his musical career too. It was like kind of erratic. It was all over the place. He was doing everything, all different kinds of music, going in and out. He went to the army, stopping, starting, changing. It was just, this Pluto Uranus just gave him so much diversity and eccentricity, but it did more than that too. Uranus here is in the 5th house. It's in Aries. So it gave him this electric edge. He was very evocative, very provocative. And Uranus is rebellious and out of the box, and like the way he moved and danced. And 5th house is a house of fame, along with 10th house, 7th house, and 1st house. So this is one of the things that really made him stand out and just drove the women crazy, because of the way he could move, this electric body movement that he had, with the pelvis, grinding, and that was just, at that time, it was just like, like, oh my God, we've never seen any. I wasn't there, but I'm only like, I'm putting 2 and 2 together. I know how the impact it had at that time. It was just crazy, like, oh my God. And that's what Uranus does. It's just like mind blowing. Uranus, if you just want to know what, like, Uranus is. It's mind blowing. It's blow your mind. That's what Uranus is. Blow your mind. Mental explosion. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Wow. Right? In the fifth house, the house of performance, of drama. It's Leo's original house. It's the house of creativity, the house of being on stage, the house of confidence, the house of children. Not that he had, well, he did have children, but that wasn't the thing here. But for creativity, for fun and games, for drama, for playing, for experimentation, for all those things. Speculative ventures, that doesn't really apply, but also fifth lord in the 10th house, that's fame giving, right? But not only that, let's look at this. Let's look at his planets. Okay, nothing outstanding here. Pallas is out of bounds, no biggie. Mercury is a little out of bounds. Not a big deal. Uranus is stationary direct at 6 seconds, extremely slow. That says that this Uranus is powerful. This is most powerful planet, Uranus in Aries. And Aries is the sign of inspiration. And Uranus also is the planet of inspiration. Besides Mars, Uranus would be the kind of mind-blowing inspiration, right? This was incredibly inspiring and out of the box position. Uranus in fifth house in Aries, squaring the Pluto. It was like explosive because of the squares too, right? And it's pretty much squaring the nodes also, which shows a kind of destiny. Squares to the nodes show some eventful thing is going to happen in the person's life, whether good or bad, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes both. And it can be more than one thing. Sometimes it involves death, like a predestined thing that'll happen. It can be death, can be success, can be explosive. Who knows what, right? It's very unknown. I mean, at least to me, I don't know how to exactly to interpret it. I just know that it means something big, something significant. And because this Uranus is virtually standing still in the sky, it's super, super powerful for the good, in a good way. That's Elvis. I mean, that's why he was groundbreaking. He broke new ground, and he was evocative and provocative and controversial. At that time, he produced a lot of controversy. That's Uranus, and these squares just make it even more like wow, craziness, right? Blow my mind, and Saturn is, we got a nice sextile from Saturn here. Saturn's ruling his voice, bringing that electricity to his voice, right? Made him a very powerful, dynamic, extremely dynamic, potent singer with the Pluto, the Uranus, the moon. It was all in his voice. That's really where his power lied, and the way he moved his body, and his ability to just be a rebel. He had the kind of, James Dean kind of comes to mind. Although James Dean had a powerful Uranus too, but he was on the ascendant, and I'll probably do his next. But similar, right? Capricorns are bosses. Just got to hand it to Capricorn Suns, especially. I mean, they're just boss. It's boss material, Capricorn Sun. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the bulk of it. Got a square from Moon to Chiron. That's kind of painful. Showing, I mean, Chiron's in the 6th. Difficulty with mothers. I don't know what the relationship with his mother is, but he could have been rejected by his mother. It's just fuel for the fire, right? Just pour it into his music, make his music better. Mars square Sun, issues with aggression. The father, difficult relationship with his parents. He did go to war. Mars is the planet of war. I don't know what he did, or maybe he was protected. I don't know. But yeah, we got the trines to the MC from here, from his voice. That's good. That's what you want to see, you know, for success and career. One of the things. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We know the second half of his life, it was all about, you know, excess and the Vegas Elvis kind of look, fat Vegas Elvis, and that's right here. And early was the thin, authentic, legit Elvis over here. So yeah, it all makes sense. That Uranus, that powerful Uranus that really gave him the edge and this excellent voice quality. And the acting was just sort of secondary. But that is Elvis in a nutshell. Voice control, powerful Uranus, and the authentic stuff from the 8th house, Pisces moon. That's about it, guys, for today. If you like the stuff, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. If you want a reading, I do mini readings and full readings. Go to my website, check it out, macroastrology.com. And I will see you again tomorrow. All right, thanks. Bye.